October 1998. Two Austin police officers, both women, both partners, vanished during an ordinary Friday night patrol. Their last radio call was routine. Their last dashcam recording ended mid-sentence, and then nothing. For over 2 decades, their disappearance has haunted Texas law enforcement, their families, and a community desperate for answers. Tonight, we reopen the file, retrace their final hours, and uncover disturbing evidence long buried in the dark. Stay with us, because what we found may change everything you thought you knew about the patrol shift that never ended. The rain had fallen steadily that night, soft at first, then pounding hard enough to turn gutters into rivers. On the grainy black and white dashcam footage recovered weeks later, the reflection of water shimmered across the windshield. Unit 47, routine traffic stop, County Road 162. Plates not matching registration, requesting backup. That was Officer Dana Navarro's voice. Calm, measured, almost casual. Her partner, Officer Claire Monroe, leaned forward in the passenger seat, jotting notes on a clipboard. The faint scratch of her pen was caught by the microphone. The video showed red taillights ahead, glowing faintly through the curtain of rain. Their squad car slowed, tires hissing on the slick asphalt. A sedan sat idling on the shoulder, trunk slightly ajar, license plate swinging loosely in the wind. Dana's voice came again, slightly muffled as she leaned toward the radio. Approaching vehicle now. The footage continued. Both women stepped into the storm, reflective jackets gleaming in the headlights. They approached on either side of the suspect vehicle. Claire's flashlight beam cut across the trunk. The lid shifted upward a fraction, as if stirred by the wind, or by something else. Then the screen flickered, and went black. That was the last anyone saw of them. The Navarro family gathered in their living room each October, even after 20 years. The ritual never changed. Candles lit on the mantel. Photographs of Dana in uniform propped carefully beside framed pictures of Claire Monroe. 2 officers, 2 partners, 2 women swallowed by the night. Donna's younger sister, Marisol, set a ceramic mug on the coffee table and pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. "Every year feels heavier," she whispered. Her mother, Elena, nodded without looking away from the photo. "Because every year we have less hope." On the television, a local news anchor repeated the same words that had become tradition. Tonight marks 20 years since Austin police officers Dana Navarro and Claire Monroe disappeared during a routine traffic stop outside San Marcos. Despite extensive searches, neither woman has been found. The case remains open, with investigators still urging anyone with information to come forward. The segment ended with the same haunting dash cam clip. 2 silhouettes moving toward a car. Rain pouring down, headlights burning into the dark. Then, static. Marisol's stomach twisted. She hated that clip, hated how it reduced her sister's life to 30 seconds of grainy footage. Dana had been more than that. She had been laughter at the dinner table, warm advice during heartbreaks, the steady protector of their family after their father passed away. But to the world, she was just an unsolved case. Detective Henry Cole had been a rookie back then, assigned to paperwork and phone duty. He remembered the night vividly, the frantic radio silence, the mobilization of search teams, the chopper blades beating the soaked air as officers combed fields with flashlights. Now, 2 decades later, Cole was seasoned, gray at the temples, carrying the case file like a phantom limb. Every October, he pulled the thick folder from his desk drawer and spread its contents across his office. Photographs of the patrol car, mud-slick fields, the sedan with its trunk half open. Witness statements scrawled in faded ink. Tonight, though, something new lay among the papers. A manila envelope with no return address, slid under his office door earlier that day. Inside was a single Polaroid. The photograph showed an abandoned barn, weather-beaten wood, collapsed roof, rust creeping across its tin siding. In the foreground, faint but visible under a layer of dust, was something painted in red. 47. Cole's chest tightened. That was their unit number. The barn stood 15 miles outside San Marcos, forgotten at the end of a rutted dirt road. Cole drove there alone, gravel crunching beneath his tires, clouds hanging low in the evening sky. The place smelled of damp wood and decay. Vultures shifted restlessly on the rafters as he stepped inside. His flashlight beam crawled across peeling boards and stacks of rotted hay. Then he saw it. On the far wall, scratched deep into the timber, were words that made his blood run cold. "We never left." Back in Austin, Marisol stared at her phone. She had received a text from an unknown number an hour earlier. Ask them about the barn. Her hands trembled as she typed a reply, but the number was already disconnected. For the first time in years, she felt the chill of possibility. That Dana's story wasn't finished, that answers were still out there. And for the first time in years, she was terrified of what those answers might be. Detective Henry Cole sat at his desk long past midnight. The Polaroid of the barn propped against his coffee mug. The photo had no fingerprints, no smudges, no traceable markings. Whoever left it had known what they were doing. He leaned back in his chair, listening to the hum of the building's heating system. Most of the department had gone home hours ago. Only a few scattered lights burned in the hallway, casting his office in a tired glow. The scratched words from the barn wall replayed in his mind. "We never left." He told himself it was probably a cruel prank. Teenagers dared each other to sneak into old barns all the time. But why the number 47? Why send it to him, specifically? He wasn't the lead investigator anymore. The Navarro-Monroe file hadn't been active in years except for periodic reviews. Yet, here it was again, demanding attention. Cole rubbed his temples. After 20 years, the case still haunted him. He remembered Dana Navarro and Claire Monroe vividly, even though he hadn't known them personally. Dana's wide, easy smile. Claire's careful professionalism. He remembered the helpless feeling of being a rookie, standing in the rain while senior officers barked orders. The way the community had lit candles at the courthouse steps, faces illuminated by flickering flames, demanding answers that never came. The department had failed them. And he wasn't sure if this envelope was a second chance or a trap. The following morning, Marisol Navarro parked outside the Austin Police Department. Her stomach churned as she stepped onto the sidewalk, clutching the mysterious text on her phone. She hadn't been to the station in years. Too many memories, too many sympathetic looks from officers who had stopped trying to give her hope. At the front desk, the receptionist greeted her kindly. "Detective Cole is expecting you." Down the hall, second door on the left. Marisol frowned. Expecting me? She hadn't told anyone she was coming. When she entered Cole's office, he was already standing, the Polaroid in his hand. "Marisol," he said, his voice heavy with both familiarity and formality. "It's been a long time." She nodded cautiously. "Why did your receptionist say you were expecting me?" Cole held up the photo. "Because I think we both got the same message." Her pulse quickened. She reached into her purse and slid her phone across his desk, the text still visible. "Ask them about the barn." Cole studied it, then handed her the Polaroid. Her eyes widened as she saw the faded barn, the red-painted number, the darkness lurking behind its doorway. She traced the outline of the number 47 with her fingertip, her throat tightening. "This was their unit," she whispered. Cole nodded. "Someone wants us looking here." Someone who knows more than they should. By afternoon, the two of them were standing side by side outside the barn. The October air carried a damp chill, the kind that seeped into bones. Marisol hesitated at the threshold. She had imagined places like this before, in nightmares. Somewhere her sister might have been taken. Somewhere her sister might still be. Cole clicked on his flashlight and led the way. The beam illuminated the scrawled words on the wall. "We never left." Marisol's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God! She traced the letters with trembling fingers. They were carved deep, not recent. The grooves had weathered over time. "Someone wanted this message to last," Cole said quietly. Marisol's knees wavered. For years she had begged for signs, begged for proof her sister's fate might not have ended that night on County Road 162. And here, in the rotten silence of an old barn, was something tangible, something real. Cole scanned the ground, noting disturbed dirt near the back wall. He crouched, brushing away a layer of leaves. A faint outline appeared, rectangular, maybe 2 feet long. He swallowed hard. "This looks like a burial site." Marisol's breath caught. "Dana? Or evidence?" Cole said carefully. "Don't jump ahead." He called it in. Within an hour, crime scene techs arrived, their vans rumbling up the dirt road. They taped off the perimeter, set up portable lights, and began digging. Marisol stood back, arms wrapped around herself as shovels cut into the earth. Then a shout. "We've got something!" A small wooden box emerged, soil falling away from its edges. The technician pried it open carefully. Inside lay a collection of items wrapped in decayed cloth. A broken police radio, its numbers scratched off. A rusted flashlight. And a badge, tarnished but still legible. Claire Monroe, badge number 2194. Marisol staggered, tears blurring her vision. She had seen that badge before, in photographs, pinned proudly to Claire's crisp uniform. Cole steadied her by the elbow. "This is confirmation," he said softly. "They were here." But Marisol's mind raced ahead. If Claire's badge was here, where was Dinah's? That night, news crews swarmed the Navarro home. Cameras flashed as reporters pressed microphones toward Marisol. "How do you feel about the discovery at the barn? Do you believe your sister is still alive? Do you blame the department for failing to protect her?" Marisol pushed past them, her mother shielding her with weary arms. Inside, the house felt suffocating. Every photograph on the walls, every flickering candle reminded her of the years stolen by silence. She closed her bedroom door and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. Another text appeared. "One badge found, one still waiting." Her blood ran cold. She typed back furiously. "Who are you? Where is my sister?" But the message bounced. Number disconnected. Marisol buried her face in her hands. Somewhere out there, someone was playing a game with her family's grief. Someone who knew exactly where to cut. Across town, Detective Cole poured whiskey into a glass and sat in the silence. He couldn't shake the image of the badge in that wooden box. It was both a breakthrough and a curse. It meant Claire Monroe had been taken to that barn. It meant Dana Navarro might have been too. But it also meant someone had been holding onto this secret for 2 decades. And had chosen now to reveal it. Why now? He glanced at the Polaroid again. The edges were crisp. The film type discontinued in the early 2000s. Whoever took it hadn't just stumbled across the barn last week. They'd been waiting. Cole's phone buzzed, a voicemail from a blocked number. He pressed play. A man's voice, low and raspy, whispered just 4 words before the line cut. "Check the trunk again." Cole's heart hammered. The sedan from 1998, the vehicle at the traffic stop. It had been processed, searched, stripped for evidence back then. He remembered the reports. The trunk had been empty. Had it? Or had something been missed? The next morning, Cole stood in the evidence warehouse, the air stale with dust and oil. Rows of shelves stretched into shadows, filled with boxed files and rusted vehicles too important to crush, too unresolved to forget. And there it was, the sedan, Faded blue paint, license plate still dangling crooked. The trunk lid chained shut for storage. Cole unlocked the chain and lifted the lid slowly. Inside lay nothing but rot, shredded fabric, and rust. He leaned closer, running his flashlight across the corroded metal. Then his beam caught something faint, scratches etched into the trunk wall. 3 letters, uneven, desperate. D.N. Cole staggered back, bile rising in his throat. Dana Navarro. She had been there. Detective Henry Cole didn't sleep that night. He sat at his kitchen table with the Polaroid, the badge, and a fresh photograph of the trunk scratches laid out before him. The letters carved into the corroded metal, D.N., were crude, jagged, the work of someone desperate. He imagined Dana Navarro's hands in the dark, cuffed or bound, clawing at the trunk wall with a key, a nail, anything sharp enough to leave a mark. He imagined her panic, her certainty that no one would ever find her. He pressed his fingers against his temples. "Why didn't we see this before?" he muttered. But the truth was, they had. Investigators had combed that trunk back in 1998, photographed every inch. The scratches had been dismissed as factory scuffs or wear and tear. Evidence missed not because it wasn't there, but because no one had believed in ghosts carved into metal. Cole poured another cup of black coffee, staring at the ghostly initials. He felt Dana's voice pressing against him, a whisper across decades. "I was here. Find me." By sunrise, Marisol sat in her car outside the police station, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles whitened. She had spent the night replaying the anonymous text over and over. One badge found, one still waiting. The words gnawed at her. She had always clung to the fragile hope that Dana might still be alive somewhere, but now that hope twisted into something darker. If someone knew where Dana's badge was, did that mean they knew where Dana was too, or what had been done to her? She forced herself out of the car and into the station. Cole was waiting in the lobby, eyes hollow, shirt rumpled. "You saw it," he said quietly. Marisol nodded. "You mean the trunk?" "Yes, the initials. They're hers." No doubt her breath caught. For a moment she couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The image of Dana clawing letters into steel burned behind her eyes. "What does it mean?" she whispered. Cole shook his head. "It means she was alive after the stop, at least long enough to leave a mark. And it means whoever took them wanted us to think the car was clean." That afternoon, Cole requested access to the original case files, thousands of pages stacked into bankers' boxes. He and Marisol spread them across a conference table in a windowless room at headquarters. The air smelled of old paper, ink faded to sepia, photographs curled at the edges, showing rain-soaked fields, muddy boots, officers standing grim-faced beside the sedan. Marisol's hands shook as she lifted a photograph of Dana and Claire together, smiling in their uniforms. "They trusted each other completely," she said softly. "Dana always said Claire was like the older sister she never had. They covered each other's blind spots. They were untouchable together." Cole studied the photo carefully. And yet, someone found a way to separate them. He flipped through reports, searching for inconsistencies. There had been dozens of tips back then, most of them useless. A drifter spotted near the highway. A gas station clerk who thought he saw 2 women with a man in a baseball cap. A farmer claiming headlights passed his property at midnight. All dead ends. But now, with the barn and the trunk, Cole wondered how many of those old reports had been more than noise. Marisol picked up a file stamped "Confidential." Interview transcript. It was dated October 15th, 1998, 3 days after the disappearance. Interviewer: Detective Ramos. Subject: Vernon Pike, mechanic. Ramos: You say you worked on a blue sedan matching this description? Pike: Yeah. Fella brought it in late at night, said the trunk lock was busted, wanted it welded shut. Thought it was strange, but money's money. Ramos: Did you get a name? Pike. No, paid cash. Tall, maybe 6 foot, rough voice. Had a kid with him, boy about 10. Marisol's eyes widened. Why wasn't this followed up? Cole frowned. It was. But nothing stuck. No records, no ID. The lead went cold. But a kid, Marisol said urgently. Someone would remember a boy. Cole rubbed his chin. Unless he grew up, changed his name, disappeared into the cracks. Marisol shivered. Later that evening, Cole drove Marisol out to the barn again. The October wind rustled through dead corn stalks nearby, rattling like dry bones. Inside, the message we never left loomed in the beam of their flashlights. "Do you think Dana wrote this too?" Marisol asked. Cole shook his head. Different tool, different hand. The letters are deeper, older. Could have been Claire, or could have been someone else entirely. Marisol crouched near the dirt floor, brushing away leaves. If they were kept here, there must be more. Something hidden. Cole knelt beside her, pressing his palm against the cold ground. He thought of the anonymous caller whispering, "Check the trunk again." Whoever it was, they weren't finished. They were feeding crumbs, leading him step by step. But toward what? Night settled heavy over the Navarro house. Marisol tried to sleep, but the shadows seemed alive, shifting against the walls. Around 2 a.m., her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A new message. "Barn isn't the first place. Look where the rain fell." She bolted upright, heart pounding. The words felt like a riddle. She scrolled back to the dashcam footage in her saved files, the last recording of Dana and Claire. Rain hammered the windshield, water streaking down the glass. Look where the rain fell. She replayed it again and again, pausing at the moment Claire's flashlight beam swept across the trunk. Water dripped steadily from the lid, pooling on the pavement. Not just rain. Something leaking. Her stomach knotted. There was something in that trunk before they disappeared. The next day, Cole stood in the evidence warehouse again, flashlight trained on the trunk. He saw it now, the faint water stains on the interior lining, preserved after all these years. He called a lab tech. "I want these tested for trace DNA, every inch of it." The technician frowned. "After 2 decades? You won't get much, just try." Marisol arrived moments later, pale from lack of sleep. She told Cole about the message. He nodded grimly. "They're pushing us forward, whoever they are. It's like they want us to see what we missed, or like they want us to go in circles," Marisol said. Cole looked at her, the weight of 20 years in his eyes. "Either way, we don't stop now." Not when Dana left her mark in here that evening. The lab called back. "Detective Cole? We pulled partial DNA traces from the trunk lining. Multiple sources. One's female, inconclusive. But the other." Cole gripped the phone. "Go on." "The other matches an old sample in the system from a convicted offender. Name's Vernon Pike Cole froze, the mechanic, the man from the transcript." Marisol saw his face pale. "What is it? Who is it?" Cole hung up slowly. "The man who welded that trunk shut. He left his fingerprints on the crime without even knowing it. And he's still alive. Vernon Pike lived on the outskirts of town, in a sagging single-wide trailer surrounded by rusting car parts and overgrown weeds. The place smelled of motor oil and rot, long before Detective Cole and Marisol stepped out of the cruiser. A dog barked somewhere in the distance, but no other signs of life stirred. Cole adjusted his jacket, feeling the evening air turn sharp against his skin. "Stay close," he murmured to Marisol. She bristled. "You think I'm letting you talk to him alone?" Cole didn't argue. He knew better. For Marisol, this wasn't just an investigation. It was a resurrection. They climbed the creaking wooden steps and knocked. The door opened slowly, revealing a man in his late 70s, stooped but still broad-shouldered, with grease permanently stained into the creases of his hands. His watery blue eyes blinked at them suspiciously. "Detective Cole," Pike rasped, voice rough as sandpaper. "Didn't think I'd see you again." Cole straightened. "You remember me?" Pike gave a dry chuckle. "I remember every cop who ever came sniffing around here. But that was a long time ago." His gaze slid toward Marisol. "And you must be Dana's sister." Marisol stiffened. "You knew her?" "Didn't know her. Just saw her picture on the news 1,000 times. Hard not to Cole stepped forward. "Mr. Pike, we've got reason to believe you worked on a blue sedan back in '98, the same night officers Navarro and Monroe disappeared." Pike's eyes narrowed. "That's ancient history. You're digging up bones that don't need digging." "Maybe. But we've got new evidence. DNA. From the trunk you welded shut." For the first time, Pike's face twitched, just slightly, but enough. His hand gripped the edge of the door frame, knuckles whitening. "DNA don't mean nothing after all these years," he muttered. Marisol's voice cut through the silence, trembling but sharp. "My sister scratched her initials inside that trunk. DNU welded it shut." Tell me why Pike's eyes flickered toward her, and something almost human, regret maybe, passed across his face. Then he shook his head and turned away. "You should leave," he said. "Both of you. Some things stay buried for a reason." Cole didn't move. "If you don't want to talk here, then come down to the station." "We can do this the official way." Pike barked a bitter laugh. "You think I'm afraid of your station? I'm an old man, ain't got much left to lose. Then why not tell us?" Marisol snapped. "Why carry this weight?" Pike's shoulders sagged. He lingered in the doorway, eyes fixed somewhere far away. Finally, he muttered, "Because I made a mistake. And I've been paying for it every day since." Cole leaned forward. "What kind of mistake?" But Pike shook his head violently. "Not here. Not now. People watching, people listening." "Who?" Cole pressed. Pike's voice dropped to a whisper. "The boy." Marisol frowned. "What boy?" But Pike slammed the door shut. Back in the cruiser, Marisol's hands trembled in her lap. "He knows something. He knows exactly what happened." Cole gripped the steering wheel, jaw tight. "And he's scared. That's what worries me." "Scared of who?" "He's almost 80. The boy," Cole said grimly. He mentioned a boy in his interview back in '98. The one who came with the man who dropped off the car. If that boy grew up, maybe he's the one sending us these messages now. Marisol's skin prickled. And maybe he doesn't want Pike talking. That night, Marisol couldn't shake Pike's words. She sat at her kitchen table, turning them over in her mind. "Because I made a mistake, and I've been paying for it every day since." She opened her laptop and searched old news archives. Dozens of articles on the Navarro-Monroe case filled the screen. Vigils, theories, failed leads. Buried among them, she found a small piece about Pike himself. "Mechanic questioned in disappearance denies involvement." The article quoted Pike directly. "I just fixed a trunk. I didn't ask questions. If I'd known what was in there." Marisol's stomach turned. Her phone buzzed. Another anonymous text. "The boy is grown." The boy remembers she dropped the phone onto the table, heart pounding. Meanwhile, Cole filed for a warrant to bring Pike in formally. But before paperwork could clear, his phone rang. It was the sheriff's office. "Detective Cole, you better get out here. We just got a call from Pike's neighbor," said they heard shouting, then nothing. "We found his trailer door wide open." Cole's pulse spiked. "And Pike?" There was a pause. Then, gone. The drive out to the trailer felt endless. Flashing lights bathed the sagging structure in red and blue. Deputies moved in and out, their radios crackling. Cole ducked under the tape and stepped inside. The place was a wreck. Drawers pulled open, papers scattered, a chair overturned. On the kitchen table sat a single item, a rusted wrench streaked with something dark. Blood. Marisol followed close behind, covering her mouth as she took in the scene. "He's gone," she whispered. "They took him." Cole examined the table. Next to the wrench, scratched deep into the wood, were words that froze him in place. "Ask the boy." The following morning, Cole sat with Marisol in a diner just outside town. Neither of them touched their food. Marisol's voice was raw. "If Pike is gone, then we'll never know the truth." Cole shook his head. "Not necessarily. If Pike was protecting someone, that boy, then maybe the boy's still out there. Maybe he's the one who's been leaving us these messages, and maybe he wants us to find him." Marisol's eyes burned with fatigue and determination. "Then we find him." "Whatever it takes," Cole nodded. "We start with Pike's old records. Work, family, anyone connected to him back then. If there was a boy, his name has to be somewhere." Outside the diner window, the morning sun broke through thin clouds, casting a cold, pale light across the parking lot. Marisol thought of Dana again, her laughter, her fierce loyalty, her stubbornness. If Dana had fought hard enough to scratch her initials into steel, then Marisol owed her the same fight now. The patrol shift that never ended wasn't just a case file anymore. It was a calling, and they were only at the beginning. The courthouse archives smelled of dust and neglect, the air thick with the weight of decades of secrets. Cole signed the logbook at the desk while Marisol shifted impatiently beside him. She'd barely slept. Her eyes were rimmed red, but her focus was razor sharp. "We'll start with employment records," Cole said quietly. "Pike worked at Harwood Auto for nearly 20 years. Someone must have been close to him. Maybe family." They sat at a long oak table stacked with manila folders. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, throwing a weak glow over yellowed documents. Cole flipped through personnel files until he found Pike's. "Here, Vernon Pike, hired 1979, terminated 2001, cause age-related health decline, no formal complaints." He scanned the page. Address on file matches his trailer. Next of kin listed, one son, Reed Caraway Pike, born 1988. Marisol stiffened. "The boy." Cole nodded grimly. If this is accurate, Reed would have been 10 when Dana disappeared. They spent the afternoon digging deeper. Birth certificates, DMV records, school transcripts. Slowly, a shadowy portrait of Reed Caraway Pike emerged. He'd been a quiet child, according to his elementary school files. Struggled with attendance. Notes from a counselor mentioned disciplinary concerns and exposure to troubling influences at home. Then, suddenly, records stopped around age 11. No high school enrollment, no medical history. "He vanished," Marisol murmured, tapping the last page. "Just like my sister." Cole rubbed his temple. "Not vanished." Hidden by evening, they sat in the records room surrounded by paper trails that ended abruptly, like paths swallowed by forest. Marisol's phone buzzed, another text from the anonymous number. "You've found his name, but names don't tell you what he became." Her throat tightened. She showed the message to Cole. He frowned. "It's him. Reed. He's watching us. Why taunt us? If he knows what happened, why not just tell the truth?" Cole leaned back, eyes narrowing. "Because maybe the truth isn't what we think. Maybe Reed isn't just a witness. Maybe he's part of it." 2 days later, they drove out to a small ranch on the county's edge. Property records showed Vernon Pike had transferred ownership to his son in 2005, though taxes hadn't been paid in years. The gate sagged on its hinges, and weeds choked the gravel driveway. The house itself was little more than a shell. Boards nailed over the windows, paint peeled to gray wood, the porch sagging under its own weight. "This place hasn't been lived in for years," Cole said, scanning the yard. But Marisol shook her head. "No, someone's been here." She pointed to faint tire tracks cutting through the weeds, fresh enough to glisten with yesterday's rain. They approached cautiously. The front door stood ajar, swinging slightly in the breeze. Inside, the air was stale with dust and mildew. Furniture draped in yellowed sheets lined the rooms, but on the kitchen table sat something that didn't belong. A blue plastic lunchbox, scuffed and faded. Marisol froze. Cole opened it carefully. Inside lay a stack of photographs. Polaroids, their edges curling with age. The first showed Dana Navarro in uniform, smiling with her patrol partner beside the squad car. The second, the same car parked near a lonely stretch of highway, headlights glowing against the night. The third, Dana herself, eyes wide with fear, duct tape pressed over her mouth. Marisol staggered back, a cry tearing from her throat. "Where did these come from?" she whispered. "Who took them?" Cole flipped to the last photo. It showed two figures, a man in his 30s, his face half-shadowed, and beside him, a boy no older than 10. The boy's expression was blank, his hands smeared with grease. Scrawled on the back in jagged handwriting, "The boy learned well." They drove away in silence, the Polaroids sealed in evidence bags on the seat between them. The sky had darkened to a bruised purple, and the first stars blinked through. Marisol stared out the window, her voice raw. "He was a child, Cole. If Reed was forced into this, manipulated by his father, what does that make him now?" Cole didn't answer. His mind replayed the image of the boy's face, expressionless, hollow, trained too young to hide emotion. He thought of Pike's final words, "Because I made a mistake, and I've been paying for it every day since." The mistake wasn't welding the trunk. The mistake was raising the boy. Later that night, Marisol returned to her house and found an envelope on her porch. No postage, no markings. Her stomach dropped as she tore it open. Inside was another Polaroid. It showed Marisol herself, sitting at the courthouse archives 2 days earlier, the overhead lights casting a halo around her head as she flipped through folders. On the back, written in the same jagged scrawl, "Now the patrol shift is yours." The photograph on Marisol's table seemed to breathe in the dim light, its edges curling under the lamp's heat. She couldn't stop staring at her own image frozen in time. Her hands on courthouse files, her brow furrowed in concentration. Someone had been there, watching, close enough to capture her without notice. Her phone buzzed. Another message. "You're walking her path now." Her stomach clenched. She thought of Dana, bound in that Polaroid, eyes wide with terror. The parallels weren't just haunting, they were deliberate. Detective Cole arrived minutes later, his jacket thrown over his arm, tie loosened. He studied the photo in silence, jaw tightening as he set it back on the table. "He's escalating," Cole muttered. "First texts, then old photos, now fresh ones. He's not just remembering anymore, he's reenacting." Marisol's voice was low, steady but quivering underneath. "You think he wants me to end up like Dana?" Cole met her gaze. "He wants control. Same way his father had, but this time he's writing the script himself." The house creaked under the wind, a reminder of how vulnerable she was. Cole noticed her trembling hand and added, "You're not alone in this. You're not her replacement. You're part of the hunt." The next morning, they filed for protective surveillance. 2 patrol units rotated near Marisol's street. But Cole knew better. Shadows like Reed didn't show themselves unless they wanted to. Instead, they doubled down on research. In the dim light of the records division, Cole pieced together Reed's absence from official systems. No license renewals, no tax filings, no bank activity. Yet someone this invisible still had reach. Marisol paced the floor. So how does he survive? How does a ghost afford Polaroids, burner phones, gas to stalk people? Cole's answer was grim. He's got help. Networks. the kind that move in silence. That evening, they returned to Pike's abandoned ranch. Crime scene tape still fluttered at the gate, but the place felt different now, heavier. Inside, the smell of mildew had intensified, mingled with faint smoke. Cole swept his flashlight across the kitchen. The lunchbox was gone. Evidence was logged yesterday, Marisol said quickly. Cole shook his head. Not everything. On the counter, someone had arranged 3 objects: a police badge dulled with age, a cracked wristwatch, and a child's shoelace knotted tightly into a loop. Marisol's breath caught. That's Dana's badge. She reached out before Cole stopped her. Don't. Gloved hands only. They bagged the items carefully, but Marisol's heart hammered as she stared at the shoelace. Dana had once tied her sneakers with that same double-loop knot, stubbornly tight so it would never come undone. Reed wasn't just leaving breadcrumbs. He was taunting them with relics only family would recognize. Back at the station, the evidence text confirmed it. The badge's serial number matched Dana Navarro. The watch was traced to Officer Lisa Monroe. The shoelace carried faint traces of DNA too degraded for certainty. But the lab's preliminary note chilled Cole. Consistent with juvenile female, approximate age 8 to 12 at time of contact. Marisol pressed her fists to her mouth. Lucia, she whispered, accidentally slipping Dana's daughter's name from memory, though Dana had never had one. No, she corrected herself with a hollow laugh. That's just me mixing this case with others. I'm losing track. Cole touched her shoulder. You're not losing track. You're seeing connections. Reed wants that confusion. He thrives in it. 2 nights later, Cole was driving home when his headlights caught something reflective on his windshield. A Polaroid, taped directly across his line of sight. He pulled over, ripped it free, and froze. The photo showed him, asleep in his own chair at home, head tilted back, the faint glow of a muted television behind him. On the back, "Cop sleep." The boy never does. Cole's chest tightened. He looked around, scanning the dark roadside, the empty fields beyond. Every shadow felt alive. He dialed Marisol immediately. "Lock your doors," he said. "He's been inside my house." The following morning, Cole met with Marisol at the diner, the Polaroid between them on the booth's table. Neither touched their coffee. Marisol whispered, "He's moving faster now." More bold. "He's building to something," Cole agreed. "But the question is..." "What?" She swallowed hard. "The patrol shift that never ended. That's what this is, isn't it? He's replaying their last night. Dana and Lisa. He's rewriting it with us." Cole's jaw tightened. "Then we figure out where their shift ended, and we stop him before he gets that far." Outside, a storm rolled over the horizon, thunder rumbling like an omen. The hunt was no longer about uncovering the past. It was about surviving the present. The storm broke at dawn, washing the streets in sheets of rain. Wipers thudded rhythmically across the windshield as Cole and Marisol drove the route mapped from the old dispatch logs. The last patrol ever recorded for Officers Navarro and Monroe. The line on the map looked ordinary. A loop across town that should have ended at the precinct parking lot. But it hadn't. Somewhere along that path, 2 women had vanished into the dark. Cole pointed to the highlighted route. "Here's where the cruiser's signal dropped. Mile marker 147, near the old quarry road." Marisol stared out at the rain-blurred landscape. "That stretch is empty. Nothing but mesquite and limestone." "Empty now," Cole said. "Not in '98. They parked on the shoulder, boots sinking into mud. The rain had softened into mist, wrapping the world in gray. Cole unfolded the weather dispatch log, reading aloud. "Unit 12, routine patrol. 2214, traffic stop. 2243 cleared. 2305, welfare check at closed gas station. 2321, radio silence." Marisol frowned. No mention of the quarry road. Cole flipped the page. None. Just ends there. Marisol's brow furrowed. Dana always kept detailed notes. She'd never skip a stop. Cole scanned the fog-draped fields around them. Unless someone ordered her not to write it down. They trudged down the cracked asphalt of Quarry Road. The pavement dissolved into gravel, then dirt. Brush closed in on both sides, heavy with rain. Half a mile in, Marisol spotted something. A faded wooden sign half buried in weeds. She brushed away the growth, revealing peeling letters. Sundown Motel, 1 mile. She stared. I don't remember this place. Cole nodded slowly. That's because it closed in 99. Condemned. But in 98. It was open. The mist thickened as they pressed forward, the faint outline of a structure materializing through the trees. The Sundown Motel sat like a carcass, its neon sign shattered, its roof sagging inward. Windows gaped black, and the front office door hung from one hinge. Cole's stomach sank. This was their last stop. Inside, the air reeked of mold and animal droppings. Wallpaper peeled in long strips, and water dripped steadily from a broken ceiling tile. Marisol's flashlight beam swept across the reception desk. Dust coated everything, except for one rectangular patch where something had recently been moved. Someone's been here, she whispered. Behind the counter, Cole found a ledger. Pages warped with moisture, ink smeared. But one entry stood clear. October 12th, 1998. Room 6, paid cash, initials RCP. Marisol's throat tightened. Read Caraway Pike. Cole flipped the page. The next line was blank. No checkout time, no signature, just silence. They pushed deeper into the hallway, boots crunching broken glass. Room numbers peeled from the doors. At the far end, room 6 stood slightly ajar. Cole nudged it open with his shoulder. The room was bare. Mattress torn, curtains rotted away. But on the wall, carved deep into plaster, were letters that froze Marisol in place. DN, her sister's initials. Marisol's breath hitched. She was here. Dana was here. She reached out, tracing the grooves with trembling fingers. For a moment she felt her sister's presence, her defiance pressed into the wall like a message across time. Cole's flashlight beam caught something under the bed frame. He crouched, tugging out a small, rusted tin box. Inside lay a cassette tape, its label smeared but legible. 12-10-98, Patrol. Back at the station, they fed the tape into an old player. Static crackled, followed by the faint hum of a patrol car engine. Then Dana's voice, steady but tinged with unease. Unit 12, possible suspicious activity at Sundown Motel. Male subject with juvenile, requesting backup. A pause. Then Lisa Monroe's voice, sharper. Dispatch, confirm backup ETA, subject approaching vehicle. Another pause, then chaos. Shouts, a door slamming, muffled struggle. Dana's voice, urgent now. Get your hands off! The tape cut off with a shrill screech of static. Marisol covered her mouth, tears welling. That's the last thing she ever said. Cole leaned back, every muscle tense. Not the last, just the last we've heard. That night, Marisol sat alone in her living room, the cassette tape on the table. The storm had passed, leaving the air heavy and still. Her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text. Room 6 wasn't the end. You haven't found the basement. Marisol's breath caught in her chest. She looked at the tape, then at the shadows pressing against her windows. The motel wasn't done with them. The Sundown Motel loomed in the moonlight like a corpse no storm could wash away. Its skeletal frame jutted against the night sky, neon sign a hollow husk. Cole killed the headlights, parking far down the gravel shoulder. The only sounds were cicadas and the distant rustle of wind through mesquite trees. You ready? He asked, glancing at Marisol. She gripped the flashlight so tightly her knuckles whitened. She carved her initials in there, Cole. She left us a message. I'm not stopping now. Cole nodded. He admired her fire, but he could feel the danger closing in. The motel wasn't abandoned. Not anymore. They entered through the same rotted office door. The smell of mildew and stagnant water clung heavier at night. Their flashlights cut narrow tunnels through the dark, beams flickering against cracked wallpaper and broken furniture. Room 6 waited at the end of the hall. The carved initials on the wall seemed to glow faintly under Marisol's beam. "Basement," she whispered, recalling the text. Cole swept the floor. Nothing obvious, but when he pulled the stripped mattress aside, his light caught faint scratches in the linoleum, a rectangular outline, as though a rug had once hidden it. He dropped to his knees, pried at the edges. With a groan of warped wood, a hatch lifted, revealing a narrow set of stairs descending into blackness. Marisol's stomach twisted. She was down there. Cole tightened his grip on his sidearm. Stay close, no matter what. The stairs moaned under their weight, each step sinking them deeper into the earth. The air grew colder, damp, heavy with something sour and metallic. At the bottom lay a corridor barely 6 feet high, walls raw cement streaked with moisture. Their flashlights illuminated faded graffiti, crude etchings. Among them, more initials. DN again. Scratched again and again until the wall crumbled. Marisol's throat closed. She touched the grooves, whispering, "She fought. She wanted to be found." Cole pressed forward. The corridor opened into a chamber. Inside were rusted bed frames chained to the wall. A single chair sat in the center, its leather straps brittle with age. On the floor lay a scattering of objects. A child's shoe, a cracked hairbrush, scraps of uniform fabric. Marisol covered her mouth. "God!" Cole crouched, studying the debris. He lifted a patch of faded blue cloth. The edge still bore embroidered stitching. "Monroe." Before he could speak, a faint click echoed through the chamber. Both froze. A Polaroid camera flash lit the dark, blinding for an instant. By the time their eyes adjusted, the corridor was empty. Cole swung his gun toward the hatch. Nothing but shadows. "Did you see?" Marisol's voice shook. "Yes." His pulse thundered. "He's here." They rushed back to the stairwell, flashlights cutting wild arcs. But the hatch above slammed shut with a deafening thud. Total darkness swallowed them. Cole jammed his shoulder into the hatch. It didn't budge. Locked from above, Marisol's breath quickened. "He wanted us down here." Their flashlights wavered. Somewhere in the black, a new sound rose, the faint hiss of static. Cole turned. Against the wall, an old cassette deck whirred to life. The same model as the tape they'd found. Dana's voice filled the chamber, distorted, hollow. "Unit 12, possible suspicious activity." The same recording they'd heard before, but now it continued past the cutoff. "Male subject restraining. Lisa, get back." A scream, then pounding fists against metal. Dinah again, her voice ragged. "Whoever finds this, tell my sister." The tape cut to silence. Marisol's knees buckled. Tears blurred her vision. "She tried to leave me a message." All this time, Cole gritted his teeth, shoving the hatch again. Still locked. Then another sound. Faint footsteps above, pacing slowly. A man's shadow passed over the cracks of moonlight seeping through the hatch edges. A voice drifted down, calm, almost tender. "You found her basement." "Now you understand," Cole roared up. "Reed, open this door." The footsteps paused. Then, "You're walking their shift. It has to end the same way, a metallic scrape." The sound of something heavy dragged across the floor above, sealing the hatch tighter. Then silence. Hours passed in suffocating dark. Their flashlights dimmed to weak glows. Cole paced the chamber, searching for another way out. At last, his beam caught a fissure in the wall, narrow but jagged. A tunnel, maybe. He pressed his hand against it. feeling cold air seep through. This might lead outside. "Help me!" Together, they clawed at the crumbling cement, fingers raw, dust choking their throats. Inch by inch, the opening widened. At dawn, with their flashlights sputtering, they broke through to the outside. They crawled into wet grass, coughing, gasping, covered in dust. The motel loomed behind them, its walls still, windows black. Cole turned back once, certain he saw a figure in an upper window, a silhouette holding a Polaroid camera. But when lightning split the sky, the window was empty. Back at Marisol's house, she sat at the kitchen table, shaking. The cassette tape from the basement lay before her, evidence bag sealed. Her phone buzzed. Another text. The tape was only half her story. Cole leaned against the counter, exhaustion in every line of his face. "He's pulling us deeper." Step by step, Marisol's eyes burned with determination. "Then we don't stop. Not until we find where the shift really ended." Outside, thunder rumbled again. The storm wasn't over. Morning light broke over Austin, pale and brittle after the night in the basement. Cole hadn't showered, hadn't eaten. He'd gone straight to the archives again. Marisol sat across from him, her eyes red but fierce. On the table lay maps, property records, and the cassette tape from room 6. "He's reenacting their shift," Cole said, his voice rough. "Every step, every stop. If we want to get ahead, we have to know his next move." Marisol shook her head. "We don't even know his endgame." Cole tapped the file in front of him. "Maybe we do. Look here. Vernon Pike owned more than that trailer. In the late 80s, he bought a parcel out in Caldwell County. Old farmstead, dirt cheap, never sold, never developed. Tax records show it's still in his name." Marisol leaned forward. "Reed's childhood home." "Exactly." Cole's eyes were grim. "If we want to know what made the boy, we have to go back where it started." The drive to Caldwell County took them past flat fields and clusters of mesquite trees, the horizon endless and gray. Clouds pressed low, promising more storms. Marisol sat stiff in the passenger seat, arms folded. "You think Dana was ever taken there?" Cole kept his hand steady on the wheel. "If Reed wants us to retrace, it's because that place matters. Whether she was there or not, we'll find out." As they neared the property, the landscape shifted. The road narrowed, gravel crunching under tires. A gate of rusted wire stood crooked, chained loosely. Beyond it stretched acres of scrub brush, and in the distance, a sagging farmhouse leaned against the wind. Cole pulled over, scanning with binoculars. No vehicles, no lights, just silence. "Let's move carefully," he muttered. The farmhouse groaned as they stepped inside. The air smelled of dry rot and dust. Floorboards sagged under their boots, releasing puffs of stale air. Marisol's flashlight swept across faded wallpaper patterned with sunflowers, peeling in strips. Toys lay scattered on the floor, a wooden truck missing wheels, a stuffed bear matted with dirt. Her stomach turned. "This is where he grew up." Cole crouched, lifting a torn notebook from the floor. Pages had been scrawled with childish handwriting. "Dad says don't talk to cops. Dad says keep secrets. Dad says the trunk is mine too." Cole's throat tightened. He flipped another page. "The lady cried." I shut my eyes. "Dad says I did good." Marisol pressed a hand to her mouth. "Oh, God." The boy hadn't just witnessed. He'd been trained, conditioned. They moved into the kitchen. Rusted pots dangled from hooks, cobwebs heavy in corners. On the table sat something jarringly out of place, a fresh Polaroid. It showed the two of them walking up the gravel drive minutes earlier. Marisol's chest clenched. "He's here." Cole scanned the shadows. "Stay sharp." They pushed deeper, up creaking stairs to a narrow hallway lined with doors. Cole opened the first. Inside, a small bed was pressed against the wall, sheet still tucked military tight though yellowed with age. Above it, nailed to the plaster, hung Polaroids strung on twine. One after another, images of cars stopped on lonely highways. Some empty, some with blurred figures at the wheel. One showed two women in uniform, Dinah and Lisa, caught mid-step as though unaware they were being watched. The next Polaroid sent Marisol to her knees. It showed her, sitting in the Navarro living room years ago, candles flickering on the mantel behind her. Her voice broke. "He's been watching me since the beginning." Cole pulled her up gently. "We're not staying here." But before they could leave, a floorboard groaned behind them. Both spun, weapons raised. At the end of the hall stood a figure, tall, gaunt, his face obscured by shadow. In his hand, a Polaroid camera gleamed under the flashlight beam. Click. The flash blinded them. By the time vision returned, the hallway was empty. Marisol's pulse pounded in her ears. "He's playing with us." Cole's jaw tightened. "And he knows this house better than we do." "Move." They stormed back downstairs, but the farmhouse was silent, empty. Only one new Polaroid waited on the kitchen table. This time it showed the basement of the Sundown Motel. Dana's initials carved into the wall, the chair in the center, the shadows stretching long. On the back, scrawled words, "The boy never left." They drove back to town in silence, the farmhouse shrinking in the rear-view mirror. Marisol finally spoke, her voice raw. It wasn't just his father. That house raised him, Cole. Every wall, every floorboard. It's still inside him. Cole stared at the road ahead, jaw set. "And he wants to pull us inside it too." Piece by piece, Marisol turned the Polaroid over in her hands. Her reflection warped across its glossy surface, Dana's initials staring back at her from the shadows. She whispered, "What if he doesn't want us to find Dana? What if he wants me to become her?" Cole said nothing, but the silence spoke louder than words. The precinct war room looked more like a shrine than an office. The walls were plastered with maps, timelines, and Polaroids tacked in messy constellations. Dana's face appeared again and again, alongside Lisa's, alongside images Reed had left behind. Cole stood with arms folded, exhaustion etched into his posture. Marisol hovered near the table, where Reed's childhood notebook lay open. The words scrawled by a 10-year-old boy stared up at her like an accusation. "Dad says the trunk is mine too." Cole broke the silence. "I've been pulling Reed's trail through the national databases. He doesn't exist, not as Reed Caraway Pike, but aliases? Dozens. Construction jobs under fake names, trucking licenses that never renewed, burner addresses attached to prepaid phones." Marisol leaned closer. "So he disappeared, but he kept moving. Like a shadow," Cole said. "Always working jobs that kept him on the road. Always cash-based. Always close enough to highways Marisol's hands curled into fists. Just like Dana and Lisa. Always out there, always in danger." Cole pointed to a cluster of pins on the map. 3 trucking companies, 2 warehouses, a motel janitorial crew, all within 100 miles of where they vanished. He never left this orbit. They traced his last known alias, Earl Jennings, to a warehouse in Lockhart. The building sat on the edge of an industrial park. Long metal siding faded to dull gray. Inside, the air smelled of cardboard and oil. Forklifts beeped in the distance as workers loaded pallets. Cole flashed his badge at the foreman. "We're looking for an Earl Jennings. Hired here about 5 years ago." The foreman frowned, scratching his beard. "Jennings? Yeah, I remember him. Kept to himself. Worked nights. Then one day, just stopped showing. Left a locker full of junk. Can we see it?" They followed him into a narrow hallway lined with dented metal lockers. The foreman tugged one open, hinges screeching. Inside were scraps of paper, a coffee mug, and, at the bottom, a bundle of Polaroids bound with rubber band. Marisol's breath hitched. The first photo showed Cole at his desk years ago, unaware of the camera. The second, Marisol leaving her workplace late at night. The third, Dana, again, grainy but unmistakable, caught mid-step in uniform. On the back of the stack, written in jagged hand, "The patrol never stops. Not for you, not for me." Back at the precinct, Cole spread the photos across the table. His jaw tightened as he studied them. He's been everywhere, watching, waiting. Marisol's voice trembled. This isn't just obsession. This is ritual. Cole nodded slowly. Reed's life froze the night of that traffic stop. He's been reliving it ever since. Every job, every alias, every motel. He's carrying the patrol forward. Marisol whispered, "And dragging me into it." That night, Marisol returned home under the watch of 2 patrol units parked discreetly on her street. She tried to sleep, but the house creaked too loudly, the shadows too deep. At 2 a.m., her phone buzzed. Another Polaroid image appeared on the screen, this time digital. It showed her bedroom window from outside, curtains half drawn, her silhouette faint in the glow of the lamp she'd left on. Her chest clenched. She scrambled for the locks, checked every window, every door. The patrol cars were still outside, yet Reed had been close enough to see her, to capture her, without a sound. She called Cole immediately. He answered on the first ring. "He's here," she whispered. "He's outside." "Stay calm. Stay where you are. I'm coming." But even as Cole sped through the empty streets, Marisol knew Reed had already vanished into the night. The next morning, Cole stormed into the station, demanding resources. "We need to treat this like an active manhunt, not a cold case. He's escalating, stalking, breaking into homes, taunting us with evidence. This isn't history anymore. This is happening now." His captain frowned. "Cole, without a warrant, without solid Cole slammed a Polaroid onto the desk. "That's my house. Taken while I slept in my chair. You think this is coincidence? He's not a ghost. He's flesh and blood. And he's circling closer every day." Reluctantly, the captain relented. "One task force, temporary. But Cole, if you're wrong." Cole's voice hardened. "I'm not." That evening, Marisol sat in the precinct conference room, staring at the wall of evidence. Reed's childhood, the motel basement, the farmhouse, the warehouse. It all formed a twisted map of one man's obsession. Her phone buzzed again. This time, the message was longer. "Your sister walked this path. She cried, she fought, she begged, but she never finished her shift. You can, you must. Meet me where the rain fell." Marisol's blood ran cold. Where the rain fell. Donna's last dash cam footage. The highway's shoulder. The blue sedan. The place it had all begun. Cole read the message over her shoulder, his face grim. "He's pulling us back to mile marker 147. Marisol swallowed hard. "The beginning." "No," Cole corrected. "For him, it's the end. He wants to finish what his father started." The room seemed to shrink, the air heavy with inevitability. The patrol shift that never ended was circling back to its origin. And this time, they knew Reed Pike would be waiting. The highway stretched like a scar across the Texas landscape, black asphalt shimmering in the early evening heat. Mile marker 147 loomed in the distance, its white numbers faded by decades of sun. Cole pulled the unmarked cruiser onto the gravel shoulder, the tires crunching to a stop. He turned off the engine but left the lights dim, casting the interior in muted shadow. Marisol sat beside him, her jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the marker. "This is it. This is where Dana's dash cam cut out." Cole nodded. 16 years later, Reed wants to bring us back here, wants to repeat the scene. Marisol's hand trembled as she adjusted her holster. "What if I can't do this?" Cole looked at her sharply. "You can. You've already done more than anyone thought possible. But you have to remember, Reed's not supernatural. He's just a man. Dangerous, yes, but flesh and blood. That means he can bleed. Marisol's voice was steady but low. He's been in my walls, my life, my head. Sometimes I forget he's just a man. Cole placed a hand on the steering wheel, knuckles pale. That's what he wants. To make himself myth. But tonight, we end it. The task force lay hidden a half-mile back, waiting for Cole's signal. Snipers positioned in the tree line. Plainclothes officers spread along the access roads. But Reed was slippery. He always knew how to slip between the cracks. Cole and Marisol were the bait. They waited. The sun dipped lower, bleeding orange and purple across the horizon. Crickets began their chorus in the dry grass. Headlights flashed by now and then, cars oblivious to the trap unfolding. At 8:17 p.m., Marisol's phone buzzed. One new message. A photo. It showed the cruiser they sat in, framed from a distance, their silhouettes clear through the windshield. Her stomach dropped. He's already watching us? Cole's pulse hammered. He lifted the radio. Units, eyes open. He's here, static crackled back. Officers checked in, reporting no sighting. Then another message arrived. Step out. Patrol together. Finish the shift. Marisol's throat felt dry. She whispered, He wants us on the asphalt. Cole exhaled slowly. Then that's where we'll go. But on our terms, they stepped from the cruiser, boots crunching gravel. The air smelled of hot tar and dust. Every sound seemed magnified. The rustle of dry grass, the far-off hiss of tires, the distant caw of a crow. Cole scanned the tree line with a tactical calm, hand hovering near his sidearm. Marisol forced herself to breathe evenly, eyes adjusting to the growing darkness. A shape shifted across the road, a figure, tall and gaunt, stepping from the shadows near the marker. Reed Pike. He wore a faded deputy's jacket, insignia long-stripped, but the silhouette unmistakable. A Polaroid camera hung from his neck, swinging gently as he walked. Marisol's heart seized. He looked older than in the files. Lines etched deep into his face, hair wiry and gray at the temples, but his eyes burned with the same feral intensity. Evening, officers, he called, his voice eerily calm. Beautiful night for a shift, isn't it? Cole raised a hand, signaling the task force to hold position. Reed Pike, he said firmly. It's over. Put your hands where I can see them. Reed smiled faintly, ignoring the command. He lifted the Polaroid camera, aimed it at them, and clicked. The flash burst in the twilight. He waved the developing photo. I've been waiting for this picture. The last patrol. The final stop, Marisol took a step forward despite Cole's warning glance. Her voice carried across the asphalt. You don't have to do this. Whatever your father made you believe, it doesn't have to end like him. You can stop, Reed tilted his head. Expression unreadable. You sound just like her. Dana. Brave. Certain. But you don't understand, do you? The shift never ends. Not for them, not for me, and not for you. Cole's voice sharpened. You killed Jim Halbrook. You took Lucia. You stalked Dana and Lisa until they vanished. You left them to rot in your rituals. It ends here. For the first time. Reed's smile faltered. He took one slow step back toward the tree line. The snipers shifted, lasers flickering briefly across his chest. Reed raised his hands mockingly. Careful now. Wouldn't want to spill blood before the patrol is complete. You want your answers, detective? You'll have to walk the same road they did. He pointed toward the darkness beyond the marker. Marisol's gut twisted. She knew what he meant. The sinkhole, the abandoned properties, the hidden graves. He wanted them to follow. Cole muttered, He's baiting us. I know, Marisol whispered. But if we don't follow, we'll never find Dinah. Reed's eyes glinted. She's waiting, just like the others. Step off the road, and you'll see. Then he slipped back into the tree line, vanishing like smoke. Cole barked into the radio. Units, move! He's heading north through the brush. The night exploded into motion, officers surging, flashlights cutting beams into the woods, radios crackling with pursuit calls. Marisol stood frozen for a moment, staring at the empty marker, the echo of Reed's voice still ringing in her head. The patrol never ends. Cole grabbed her arm. We have to move. Now they plunged into the brush, branches clawing at their uniforms. The task force fanned out, beams of light weaving through the thicket. Somewhere ahead, the snap of twigs, the rustle of leaves. Reed moving fast, impossibly agile for his age. Cole's breath was ragged. He knows this ground. We don't. Marisol's flashlight caught something glinting in the dirt. She bent quickly. A Polaroid photo lay face up. Donna, bound, blindfolded, mouth open mid-scream. The image was fresh, chemicals still wet, edges curling in the night air. Her vision blurred with tears. He still has her, Cole. He still has her. Cole's jaw tightened. Then we don't stop until we bring her home. They pressed forward into the darkness, chasing the phantom of a man who had turned the open road into his hunting ground. The forest swallowed them whole, and somewhere just ahead, Reed Pike prepared the final act of his patrol. The woods thickened, turning into a labyrinth of cedar and oak. The air grew cooler, damper, carrying the faint tang of limestone and water. Marisol's boots sank into soft earth as she pushed forward, flashlight beam darting wildly. Somewhere ahead, the sound of water echoed. A slow drip, then a hollow splash. Cole caught it too. He motioned with 2 fingers. Cave system. Marisol's pulse thundered. Donna's case file had mentioned sinkholes dotting the area. Too dangerous to search back then, too many dead ends. But Reed knew them. He'd grown up with them. A beam of light caught pale stone ahead. The forest broke open into a clearing, where jagged limestone gaped in the earth. A sinkhole, wide and black, breathing cool air like a mouth. And at its edge stood Reed Pike. He looked almost serene, silhouetted against the moonlight, camera dangling from his neck. You made it, he said softly, just like they did. Cole leveled his gun. Step away from the hole, Reed. Reed ignored him, crouching near the rim. He lifted a rope, already knotted, already anchored to a limestone spur. This is where the patrol ends. Down there, that's where your answers sleep. Marisol's voice cracked. Dana! Reed's eyes glittered. She's still walking her beat. Always will be. He fed the rope into the darkness. The sound of it uncoiling echoed deep into the hollow chamber below. Then he looked back at them, face carved with fanatic intensity. Come see. Cole advanced cautiously, every muscle tense. You go down first, Reed. Hands on your head. Now Reed only smiled. No, detective, you've got to earn it. That's how my father taught me. A patrol shift doesn't end until you've walked it all the way down. He swung the rope once, then began lowering himself, feet braced against the jagged wall. Cole cursed and lunged, but Reed moved fast, sliding into the dark. His voice floated back up, echoing unnervingly. Come finish it! Marisol's heart hammered against her ribs. She stepped toward the rope. Cole grabbed her arm. No, it's a trap! Tears burned her eyes. What if Dana's down there? Cole's jaw clenched. Then we go together. They clipped harness lines to the rope. The task force had caught up, floodlights blazing across the clearing. Officers set anchors, rifles trained on the pit. Cole and Marisol began their descent. The cave swallowed them in damp silence. Their flashlights carved tunnels of light across slick stone walls. The rope creaked with each shift of weight. 10 feet down, 20. The air smelled of wet earth and something older, rust, decay. Cole's boot touched limestone ledge. They unclipped and moved forward, beams cutting across the chamber. The floor stretched into a hollow dome, stalactites dripping overhead. In the center stood Reed. He had arranged Polaroids across the walls, hundreds of them, curling in the damp air. Photos of Dana, of Lisa, of Marisol, even of Cole. Each one pinned with rusted nails, forming concentric circles like ritual symbols. At Reed's feet lay a crude wooden cross, rotted and water-stained. Ropes dangled from it, stiff with mildew. Marisol's stomach lurched. Dana was here. Reed spread his arms wide, his shadow stretching monstrous across the wall. She walked her patrol. She gave herself to the road. Just like all of them. Just like you will. Cole stepped forward, gun raised. Where is she? Reed laughed softly. He lifted a small Polaroid from his pocket and held it out. The photo showed Dana, older than when she vanished, but unmistakable. Her eyes swollen from tears, her uniform dirty. She sat in this very chamber. The date scrawled at the bottom, 2009. Marisol's breath hitched. She was alive. Years after, Reed nodded almost reverently. She stayed with us. She finished her shift. Marisol's legs buckled. Cole caught her, his own rage boiling. What did you do to her, Reed? Reed's expression hardened. I didn't do anything. The road claimed her. The patrol never ends. Marisol's grief flared into fury. She tore free of Cole's grip and lunged at Reed. Where is she? She screamed, fists pounding his chest. Reed let her strike him, almost welcoming it. Then, with surprising speed, he pulled the camera from his neck and smashed it against the wall. Shards rained down, scattering across the cave floor. You'll never know, he hissed, because knowing ends the shift. And the shift never ends. Cole pressed the gun harder into Reed's temple. It ends tonight. Reed's eyes burned. Then finish it. Do what my father couldn't. The cave pulsed with silence. Marisol stood shaking, torn between rage and despair. Cole's finger tightened on the trigger. Then Marisol spoke, her voice breaking. No, we take him in. He doesn't get to vanish like a ghost. He doesn't get to control the ending, Reed sneered. You'll never have closure. Marisol stepped closer, her face inches from his. Maybe not. But you'll rot in the light instead of thriving in the dark. She slapped cuffs on his wrists, the clink echoing through the chamber. As they hauled Reed up the rope, the cave seemed to breathe relief. The Polaroids fluttered in the draft like restless spirits. At the surface, floodlights blinded Reed, officers swarming to drag him into custody. He laughed, high and thin, voice carrying across the clearing. The patrol never ends. Not for me, not for you. Marisol stood on the rim, staring down into the sinkhole's yawning black. Somewhere in that abyss, Donna's story had ended, but Reed hadn't broken her. He wouldn't break them either. Cole came to her side, silent. Together they watched Reed shoved into the back of a cruiser, still grinning, still chanting. Marisol whispered, more to herself than anyone, "The shift is over." But in her heart, she knew the echoes of it would follow her forever. The courthouse smelled of varnish and old paper. Reporters pressed against the barricades, their cameras flashing as Reed Pike was led through the hallway in shackles. His once proud stride had shrunk into a shuffle, but his eyes still glittered with that unsettling conviction. The patrol never ends, he muttered as deputies escorted him past the throng, his voice barely audible, yet picked up by every microphone. Marisol watched from a distance, standing with Cole at the far end of the corridor. She felt no triumph in seeing Reed caged, only exhaustion. Cole's jaw was set. He'll never walk free again. That's what matters. Marisol shook her head slowly. It doesn't bring Dana back. No, Cole admitted, but it stops him from taking anyone else. Weeks later, the sinkhole site had been excavated by forensic teams. Bones recovered, uniform remnants, rusted cuffs. Marisol had gone once, just once. She stood on the rim, watching the evidence crates lifted out, her stomach twisting at the thought of Dana somewhere among them. Cole had stayed beside her, silent. "They'll run DNA," he'd said quietly. "They'll give you certainty." But certainty had felt like a cruel word. Knowing didn't heal. It only anchored the pain deeper. The city held a memorial for Dana and Lisa. A black granite wall inscribed with their names was unveiled outside the precinct, sunlight glinting across its surface. Marisol pressed her palm against the stone, whispering her sister's name. The polished granite was cool, unyielding. A permanence Dana had been denied. Cole spoke at the service, his voice rough. Dana and Lisa walked into the night to protect strangers they'd never meet. Their shift ended far too soon, but their legacy walks with every officer who steps into the dark. Tonight, we remember them not as victims, but as guardians who never gave up the road Marisol had to turn away, tears burning her eyes. In quieter moments, she found herself haunted by the cave walls lined with Polaroids. She'd wake in the night convinced she heard the faint click of Reed's camera outside her window. Cole urged her to take leave, to let the department cover her caseload. "No one expects you to keep pushing," he said gently, but Marisol shook her head. "If I stop, he wins." He wanted to paralyze me with his shadow. I won't give him that. She returned to patrol. Short shifts at first. The rhythm of the road was grounding, the hum of the engine, the red-blue strobe, the radio chatter. Yet every traffic stop, every stretch of empty asphalt, carried the weight of what had been lost. Reed's trial stretched for months. Prosecutors piled evidence, the warehouse locker of photos, the cave with its Polaroid shrine, witness testimony from Reed's fractured past. He never denied anything. He spoke calmly, describing his father's lessons, the shift that never ended, the way he had only carried it forward. The courtroom chilled as he recited the names of those he had watched, those he had taken as if reading a roll call. Marisol attended only once. She sat in the back, heart pounding, as Reed scanned the gallery. His eyes found hers, and he smiled. Her breath caught, nausea rising. She fled before the recess, Cole following close. On the courthouse steps, she bent over, hands on her knees, gasping. Cole rested a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to face him again." She nodded, trembling. "He still believes it never ends." "Then we prove him wrong," Cole said. The jury returned a verdict of guilty on all counts. Life without parole. When the judge read the sentence, Reed leaned forward, shackles rattling. His voice carried through the courtroom. "You think the shift ends with me?" "Number. It walks in you now. Every time you hear the road. Every time you see the marker deputies dragged him away, his laughter echoing in the chamber." Months later, Marisol visited the granite wall again. The evening sun slanted across it, casting long shadows on the ground. She brought a single flower and placed it at Dana's name. Cole arrived quietly, standing beside her. Neither spoke for a long time. The city sounds drifted around them, traffic, sirens, voices, life moving forward despite the scars. Finally, Marisol whispered, "I used to think finding the truth would close the wound, but it only shows how deep it runs." Cole's gaze remained on the wall. "Closure's a story we tell ourselves. The truth doesn't close wounds. It teaches us how to carry them." Marisol looked at him, eyes damp but steady. "And what about Reed's words? Do you believe the patrol never ends?" Cole exhaled, the lines of his face weary but resolute. "It ends when we choose to walk away, when we refuse to let his shadow set the beat. For Dana, for Lisa, for you." Marisol's lips trembled. She pressed her palm against Dana's name once more, then turned toward the fading light. Together they walked away from the wall, their footsteps quiet but certain. The shift, at last, was over.